want to make sure. If you wish to speak or when I ask you to vote, please raise your hand for the officers and so I can see you clearly. Only turn on your microphone when I invite you to speak. When I invite you to speak, I do expect repetition of previous speakers. Before we continue, I just need to advise that we are not expecting any fire drill this evening. Therefore, if the alarms sound, please leave quickly as possible and make your way outside by the exit of the library where we will gather and check everyone is accountable for. Do not use the lift, please. If anyone have disability or difficulties, please refer to Democratic Service. For the new councillor, that would be Sandra. Apology for absent have been received from Councillor Shafiq, Amanda, Penn, Stephen, Chris, Nazri, and Tim. Are there any other apologies?
Thank you, Chair. Can I give apologies for Councillor Charlotte? Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, just to confirm, I think you said Councillor Nazreen Shah, obviously for religious purposes, and Councillor Asif Khan is still getting the COVID. And obviously Councillor Matt Tamain, he still has one, and he would get here late, but I'll mention him later on. Thank you.
Thank you, Nigel. Councillor Nigel. Do any member have any interest to declare? Thank you. Councillor Doctor, can you give me a chance, please? Let me run the show. Thank you. Can I just ask Jenny, Councillor Jenny, which item?
Thank you, Chair. I have to declare an interest for item number 11 and number 12 as I sit on the board of Watford Community Housing.
Councillor Gabriel.
Thank you, Chair. I would like to declare interest in point number 14, motion 2, as I work at the Watford General Hospital. Thank you.
Councillor Agar.
Thank you, Chairwoman. I would declare conflict of interest with agenda item 15, motion to regards the West Hart Teaching Hospital where I worked.
Thank you all. The annual council meeting held on May the 21st. Okay, so official announcement. I would like to extend wishes to Matt, but he's not here, for his achievement of being the MP of Watford. So congratulations, Matt, although you're not present at the moment. I also like to thank Dean for standing for MP in Watford. The King's Birthday Honour. On behalf of the council, I would like to congratulate to Watford residents and others in Hertfordshire who were recognized in the honour list. Watford big events. Just to remind all members about the forthcoming big event over the summer. My event. Since being elected as a chairwoman in May, it has been busy 2 months. If you would like to know what I've been up to, please follow me on Facebook, Dawn Allen, or Mayor Peter Taylor, and you could see what I'm up to. I have also arranged some fundraising The first one will be on the 14th of September, which is a sponsor walk in Castleberry Park. All are welcome. You only have to raise £300, only £300 to join us on the walk. The 12th of October, I'm also organizing a Black History Month dinner/party. All is welcome. Please support. I want to see everyone support, please. Nigel, you'll turn up, aren't you? Okay. Item 5, Mayor's Report. A report of the Mayor is attached to the agenda. Please, can you raise your hand now if you wish to ask a question of the Mayor? I will then make a note of all members who wish to ask a question and read it out to make sure that all your name is there. So, anyone want to ask a question? So, my Ian, okay. Yeah. So who else? Okay, so we only have Ian and Jacta. Is that correct? No favor? That's not favor as well. Anyone else? Anyone else? No. Okay. So who is going?
Yeah, invite Peter.
So should we invite the Mayor to present his report?
Thank you, Chairwoman. Just before I present the motion, I would just like to, on behalf of all of us, offer our condolences to the Hunt family following the terrible events in Bushey last week. I know that those of us who live in Oxley live particularly close to that family, and it's unimaginable what they're going through. So I'm sure that in all of our prayers and thoughts at the difficult time. The second thing that I would like to do is just following on from your comments, obviously congratulate Matt Temain on being elected as Watford's new MP. There's a lot that I hope to work with him on to improve the town. I would like to place on record my thanks to Dean Russell for his service over 5 years. We didn't agree on everything, but I never doubted that his commitment to Watford, and we did put party politics to one side on a number of occasions to serve the residents. And of course, I would like to thank Councillor Stokesbury for leading the campaign so well for the Liberal Democrats.
Thank you, Mayor Peter. I would remind you all, each question will have no longer than 1 minute per question. There are to be no statement or supplementary except for Councillor Bell as the leader of the opposite group. Only only members on the list may ask question. So can I invite Councillor Jacta? You want to go first?
Yeah.
Please.
Thank you, Chairperson. I know it's taken a long time to get the town hall finished, and it's still not finished, and I know some areas are listed. I wanted to know how much it's going to cost us to get that finished, and how much it's already cost us, and what savings will we be making per year, and when will we get it finished? So if you could please let me know how much the cost is going to be, how much will we be saving in a year, and how many, and then I can calculate how many years will it take us to accumulate the savings. And also, it's taken far too long.
Thank you for the question. I mean, a number of things. First of all, on the timeline, I'd say a particular challenge on the timeline has been about securing funding from external organisations. So I wouldn't accept that it's the council's fault for the length of time it's taken. So if you take, for example, the levelling up funding, we have the previous government agreed to allocate £16 million towards the Coliseum and the Innovation Hub. We're still awaiting that funding and confirmation that the new government will honour it. So, of course, that affects the timeline. securing money from the lottery fund for the museum. We will hear about that in September. Of course, until that's confirmed or not, that affects the timeline. So I'd like to commend officers the amount of work that's gone into it. I think that they've done an excellent job managing a very complex project with a number of parts. In relation to the savings, I mean, the decarbonisation works alone, from recollection, will save £300,000 a year in reduced costs from just having the solar panels, having the insulation, of course, moving the museum from Benskin House to the town hall will save money. But I'd also say that actually it's not just about saving money, it's about generating income for the town. So once we have the Coliseum reopened with AEG, who operate the O2, that will bring money, jobs, prosperity to the town. I think it's right that the council supports those things. Similarly, an innovation hub would support businesses in the town centre. So the business case for it is a very strong one. There is investment, there are savings, ongoing savings to the council, and it's supporting the community and the vibrancy and economy of the town. The figures on the costs are all available in the finance papers. That I believe you're on the finance committee, but they have been brought forward a number of times in our budget papers. What I'm saying is we can't give you the final cost because we still don't know if we've secured the £16 million from the government, the money from the lottery funds. So we can't give you an overarching figure because we still don't know if we've secured those amounts. But the amounts that the council has allocated have been provided on a number of occasions, both at finance committee and at budget council.
Thank you, Mayor Taylor. Can I invite Councillor Favour to speak? Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. I want to also express my condolences to the victims of the horrible murder in Bushi. And I just, I got a call from Sky News to speak about it, but it made me reflect that as a borough council, we are White Ribbon ambassadors and champions. And I was wondering if there's any other thing we could do to prevent things like this happening. I know there are a lot of costs to ban weapons, this kind of knife and crossbow and all that. But I'm wondering if there are other things we could do fundamentally to change attitude around violence against women and girls. I wonder what your thoughts are.
Thank you, Councillor Ezefed, for that question. I think it's a really important issue that you've raised. And of course, we're all heartbroken about the incident in Bushi. But you're right to highlight the issue of violence against women and girls. One of the things that we are keen to highlight is just the prevalence of domestic abuse. I believe in last year there were 1.7 million women who suffered domestic abuse in this country. It's very sadly prevalent, and I think it's important that we do as much as we can, that we know that all of us have to act to create a society where we don't see that violence and abuse in existence. You're right to highlight the work that Agadaichen and myself and others have done in relation to being a White Ribbon accredited council. And that's not just about what we're doing internally, but working with partners such as the Women's Centre and the police and others. I'm always keen to work across party if people have got suggestions about more things we could be doing. And one of the things that was quite impactful actually in recent months was just walking from the town hall down to St Mary's and highlighting the issue and having people approach us to ask about the services we provide. So there's always more we can do, but I'm pleased that we have started on that journey working with the White Ribbon accreditation.
Thank you, Mayor Peter. I'm going to invite Councillor Ian to speak, but before you speak, congratulations. You have done us proud in Watford. And totally, I forget you, but that's wrong. So I have to divert and congratulations. Now you can speak, sir.
Thank you, Dawn. That's very nice of you. Actually, the question I was going to ask is related somewhat to Jagtar's, actually. But with regards to the levelling up bid, the £60 million bid, I just want to first say officers did so much work to prepare that application, and indeed it was refused a number of times. We finally got over the line. I know you moved quickly after the election results to send a letter into government to ask if they're going to honour that allocation of funds to Watford. I know the timings around Purda, etc., made it tricky. Have you received any notification from the government on whether or not they'll be honouring that £60 million pot for Watford? And if not, have they given an indication of timelines when we might hear from them? Thank you.
Thank you, Ian, for that question. I mean, just on the final point, we haven't had an indication of timelines. I would say, I don't want to repeat what I said to Councillor Dinser, but the point is we had secured £60 million. the new government has said that they don't like the way that councils are funded, endlessly bidding for pots of funding, the kind of begging bowl culture that some people have referred to. It means that there's a lot of officer time spent on those bids. 80% of the time, councils were then unsuccessful as you put all that effort in, didn't secure the funding. We had a really strong bid to secure £16 million. The last government allocated that funding. We've done all of the necessary process. I know that Liam and others have worked really hard on that. We now do need to see that money forthcoming. The new minister that will be responsible is someone who's well known to many of us, Baroness Sharon Taylor, the former leader of Stevenage Council. And so I'll hope that she will recognise the importance of that funding to deliver a really important project in the heart of our town, supporting our culture, supporting business and the community. So we think it's a really strong case. We do need that certainty over the decision. Obviously, we hope that the money will be forthcoming as soon as possible.
Thanks.
Thank you, Mayor Taylor. Question by member of the council. No question have been received. Question by member of the public. No question have been received. No petition. No urgent business. Scrutiny report 2023-2024. A report of Senior Democratic Service Officer has been circulated with the agenda. I am inviting Councillor Peter Kay to introduce the report and move the recommendation. You have 7 minutes.
Doesn't work. It does work now. Okay. Thank you, Chair. So I'm substituting for Councillor Grimston this evening, who's the Chair of Overview and Scrutiny Committee, in presenting this report. I'm actually a member of the Overview and Scrutiny Committee, and I'm also the Vice Chair of the Finance Scrutiny Committee. Particularly involved in that work. So it gives me great pleasure to present the 23-24 annual scrutiny report to Council. Scrutiny is part of Watford Borough Council's democratic structure. It is led by non-executive councillors who check and challenge decision-making to ensure that it is carried out in the best interests of Watford's residents. With a focus on optimising services for the local community, scrutiny members undertake 3 key areas of work: reviewing and developing council policies to help shape the delivery of public services; secondly, scrutinising decisions to check that the actions being taken are correct and that services are operating effectively; and thirdly, examining external partners providing services which impact on the local community. Watford Borough Council has 2 main committees, the Overview and Scrutiny Committee and the Finance Scrutiny Committee. In addition, there is provision for up to 3 time-limited task groups each council year. In 23-24, there were 17 non-executive councillors and 4 portfolio holders who attended scrutiny meetings. 32 substantive topics were scrutinised. 18 partners and stakeholders provided evidence, and there were 27 hours of scrutiny meetings, and 1 scrutiny task group was undertaken. So a lot of work. Scrutiny training is compulsory for councillors sitting or substituting on the scrutiny committees, and it must be repeated by those councillors every 2 years. There were 2 training sessions delivered this year: an in-house training delivered by the Senior Democratic Services Officers and external training delivered by the Centre for Governance and Scrutiny. In total, 17 councillors received that training. In addition, the Chief Finance Officer held a bespoke training session on the role of the Finance Scrutiny Committee ahead of its first meeting, as well as a session on Treasury management later in the year. Some of the work carried out by Overview and Scrutiny this year included reviewing performance and progress reports in terms of spotlight on services. The committee looked at the waste and recycling services and street cleansing services, with representatives of Veolia attending. In response to the cost of living crisis, representatives of Watford and Three Rivers Citizens Advice and a food charity attended to provide an overview of the response in Watford. More details of the committee's work can obviously be found in the relevant reports. There was 1 task group this last year around social housing, which was prompted by Watford Community Housing's invitation to present to overview and scrutiny in February 23, around their response to the National Damp and Mould Agenda. Other housing providers were invited to take part. A number of recommendations were made in the committee meeting on the committee findings and are detailed in the relevant report. Finance Scrutiny Committee undertook a series of work from reviewing performance reports and discussions on all associated factors affecting performance, reviewing the annual proposal for fees and charges before they were implemented, undertaking an annual review of the council's investment portfolio, reviewing the council's debt management processes, and reviewing the budget planning process for 24-25. In November 2023, Watford Borough Council underwent a local government association peer challenge to reflect on its performance and achievements and take forward learning for areas identified for improvement. The report noted that the scrutiny function was seen by peers as mature and inclusive. The council has been on a journey with improving overview and scrutiny functions with greater alignment to the council's key work areas and programmes. The council has adopted scrutiny best practice by allocating the chair of finance scrutiny to an opposition member, as well as call-in being chaired by an opposition member, usually the vice chair of the overview and scrutiny committee. Finally, I would like to thank the chairs of both committees, councillors on the committees and Watford Borough Council officers supporting the committees for all their hard work and enthusiasm in carrying out such an important role. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Favour, you're second in. Would you like to speak? Any other members like to speak? You have up to 5 minutes. Who else would like to speak? Okay. Robbie, Councillor Robbie, would you like to speak?
Thank you, Chair. Thanks for the very good, very full report. There's just one area of, I'll say interest rather than concern that I'd like to pick up on, and that's the community safety partnership. I've got a comment on that about we had some communication with the community safety partnership. What I don't see is anything which says we are holding the community safety partnership to account. That is, as far as I understand, Chair, that is the role of the council, is to hold them to account, not just to see what they're doing, but to actually give them tasks to do. Now, in my ward, unfortunately, antisocial behavior continues to be a huge problem. Certainly in certain towns, tracers are up in arms because of the community safety in that area, and the drug dealing and all of that. That is a job for the community safety partnership to do. I'm not criticizing the council. The council has got a role as a member of that partnership to actually make things happen. So I really want to urge the committee and the portfolio holder to actually take a closer look at what the community safety partnership is doing and to examine whether there's more directive we can give to the partnership rather than just bring them in, listen to them, and go away. There was a time when we actually used to have proper scrutiny of the partnership leads. We used to call them in. Now we just get their annual report and their annual plan. We don't actually integrate that or monitor that. So, as I say, not so much a criticism, but more a plea to say, can we look at how we can strengthen the work of the community safety partnership so that the antisocial behavior, particularly in the drug dealing in the town, is taken care of more aggressively than they do at the moment. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Robbie. Councillor Favour, Councillor Bell, you want to speak? Thank you.
Thank you, Chair, and I'd like to thank the Councillor Rodriguez, I presume it's Councillor Rodriguez, but the detailed report that obviously is read out by Councillor Floss. But yeah, I'd like to agree with Councillor Martins. He's quite right that certainly years ago, we certainly had a much more detailed scrutiny and questioning of the crime and the CSYP and everything else. So we don't seem to have that now. So I think that's something we should be looking into. And if the portfolio holder could maybe report back to us about that, that would be useful. I mean, Liam used to address this, didn't he? And they used to have regular meetings. And I think at one stage, I think it was 4 a year, but certainly at least twice a year. So there could be something, and maybe, I don't know, Chair, through you, Chair, if maybe the portfolio holder could reply to that, see what we could have in the next year going forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Bell. Councillor Agha?
Thank you, the Chairwoman. As a portfolio holder, I just wanted to highlight that the Community Safety Partnership coming every year to overview scrutiny and introduce a very detailed report about any concern raised by the community, raised by the members, and also updating us with the data, which is really important and a key to us. And I just wanted to highlight at this point, if anyone in this chamber feels that they do not see enough information, I'm here. I'm happy to take any questions in writing or answer for any concerns, but also the community safety team is here to help and answer any question. And just as a point of awareness, I wanted to say that actually antisocial behavior went down in our town, which we are very proud of it, and we're working really hard towards to achieve the best outcomes for our community so the community can feel safe. So at this stage, if anyone has any concerns, please do come to me. But the community safety team reporting to overview and scrutiny on a regular basis, and as some members across the chamber is a part of this committee, and I attended the last report when it was presented. I heard a very positive response from my colleagues across the chamber. So I'm not necessarily understand the concerns raised tonight. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Agha. Councillor Jokta, I'm going to give you 1 minute because you didn't put up your hand. So I'm going to use discretion, please. Thank you.
Sorry, Chair, I think that's wrong because we're discussing the report and people can put their hands up during the report. You didn't ask for people to put their hands up in advance. So I have the right to speak on this report.
Councillor Jokta, in my first message, I did ask that people must put up their hands if they need to speak. We're not going to go through it. We're going to ask you to speak.
I have the right to speak on the report, so please be courteous. The call-in was mentioned, and this year I will be chairing the call-in committee. And the makeup for new councillors, the makeup of the committee is 9 councillors, 7 are from Lib Dems and 2 from Labour. So when we call things in, it's 3 councillors that have to sign. So it'd be nice to see that if you guys don't agree with some of the stuff that's going in and you need to call something in, then please sign that form. And I have to chair the call-in committee. And I'll make a request to all the committee members when we discuss the call-in. And please be aware, try to take your political hat off and look at what we're discussing. Otherwise, it's not a fair structure. I know you got the numbers, so that's why it's 7-2, but it's courteous to look at the report properly and then respond and vote accordingly. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Favour, would you like to speak? I'm going to call upon Councillor Peter Kay to sum up.
Okay, I don't think there are anything particularly further to add to what was said, but just to reinforce Councillor Dyken's point, I mean, I was on the committee. There was a substantial discussion on the community safety partnership. Liam Fitzgerald was mentioned. He led the conversation. It was very detailed. There was a detailed report for that. I really don't understand what the concern is that, that it's been said that we don't do that anymore. That was a very substantive conversation. So aligned with the, the important work of the Overview and Scrutiny Committee through the year. Thank you.
Thank you. Does the council agree the recommendation as printed as on page 17 of the agenda pack? The council note the scrutiny annual report 2023-2024. All in favor? That's been carried. Thank you. Can I ask Councillor Jenny to leave the room? Thank you. Sorry, Councillor. Relocation of New Hope Service from 64 Whitmanworth Road. A report of the Housing Enabling and Development Manager has been circulated with the agenda, including the minute from Cabinet, which has been circulated separately. I am inviting Councillor Kennedy to move the recommendation. You have 7 minutes.
Chairwoman Dawn, it's actually Councillor Glenn Saffrey who's going to be presenting.
Okay, apology for that. Councillor Glenn, can you move the recommendation?
Well, just my microphone wasn't working. So. I hope you can all hear me okay. Thank you, Chairwoman. Thanks, Kennedy. So we're all aware of the acute and ongoing crisis in affordable housing. Although this is a national issue, we can see the severe effects in Watford. We've all seen house prices, mortgage costs and rental costs in our town increasing to levels that are unaffordable and sometimes unbearable. Sadly, many, if not all of us here, will have harrowing first-hand experience of how these affect the residents we represent. As a result, this council continues to explore every possible avenue to increase both the quantity and quality of affordable housing options available for those in need. This proposal, I'm glad to say, through its 2 recommendations, addresses both of these priorities. The first recommendation addresses quality. It aims to provide a benefit to people in the single homeless pathway in Watford by supporting the provision of better move-on accommodation for individuals experiencing homelessness. This objective is fully supported and welcomed by New Hope Trust, who do such admirable work supporting people to overcome a desperate situation. The property at 64 Rickmansworth Road is not the most practical or suitable to host their services, and granting £160,000 to Watford Community Housing from proceeds raised by its sale will secure more suitable accommodation. The second recommendation addresses quantity by ring-fencing the remaining funds from the sale for delivering new affordable housing. Best value delivery options will be explored, including partnering with registered providers, working with other developers, and direct purchase by the council. Schemes will be put forward for approval in the coming months. Using funds in this way also provides an invest-to-save opportunity for the council, as the new affordable housing will alleviate pressures on temporary accommodation spending, for example. I'm very glad to propose this to you, colleagues, and I hope you will unanimously support it. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Glenn. Can we have a seconder for that? Okay, thank you. Councillor Aga, would you like to speak?
Thank you, Chairwoman. I reserve my right to speak.
Does any member wish to speak? You have up to 5 minutes. Anyone else? Go ahead, Mayor Peter.
Chair.
Oh, sorry. Anyone else? So we've got the Mayor, Ian, Councillor Ian, and Councillor Jokta. Anyone else? And who? Councillor Bell, I didn't even see your hand. Guys, can you keep your hand up so we can just spot you? Yeah, thank you.
Okay.
Go ahead, Mayor Peter.
Thank you very much, Chairwoman. I just want to say, obviously, I support this very strongly. I was actually visiting YMCA today and often visit both themselves and New Hope, and they do clearly really important work incredibly well. And it's a very difficult national situation with the housing crisis. One of the things about this is that we'll be obviously increasing the amount of accommodation we have, and there'll be more appropriate accommodation. The other thing I think just to highlight is the pressure on the council. I know that Hannah is very much aware of this, financial pressures. For some councils now, almost half of all of their budget is spent on temporary accommodation because of the scale of the housing crisis that we face in this country. And so it's really important that we do everything we can to make sure we have that move on accommodation, that people move out of bed and breakfast and into the right kind of accommodation that can support them and their families to lead happy and successful lives. So it's a really positive thing that we're doing, and I would commend both New Hope and, of course, officers in our housing team who have gone above and beyond to make sure that we can deliver this scheme.
Thank you, Mayor Taylor. Councillor Jacktar, can I invite you to speak?
Yeah, Chair, I've got some questions and concerns. Peter rightly mentioned about the state of the housing, and we discussed it at the last scrutiny committee meeting, that how many people we're actually housing outside Watford in temporary accommodation. And I made comments on that committee that has problems for those people. I've had some casework that was a resident raised with me. A person was working in Watford Hospital who doesn't drive, and he was living around the corner from Watford Hospital. Then he was housed somewhere near Aylesbury. So he didn't drive. Then he had pressure on his job at the hospital, which he could have ended up losing his job. That would have put more pressure on his. Another resident had his kids going to local school who also didn't drive, and they were moved from out of town into a temporary accommodation, which put pressure on getting his kids to school on time. So it's a major issue. And my question is, the 160,000 that's going to be given to housing, I welcome that. But how long is that for? If they're going to lease another property, how many years will that see them through? Because I don't see that will go a long way. Or will they get more money as when they run out? I think 64 Rickmansworth Road has been there for years, and so my question is, how long will that last for New Hope Trust, that who do a really good service for vulnerable people, and how long will that take before it runs out?
Thank you, Councillor Jacktar. Can I invite Councillor Bell to speak?
Yeah, thank you, Chair, and I'd like to support this report, specifically by Laura Marland, obviously, and the housing team. Yeah, it's very important. We should always, wherever we can, use council property. We do get money from selling off council properties to increase, especially, obviously, social rented homes, but also the homeless support services, as in this case. And I certainly think it's a good thing to do. And maybe the idea also of moving away from Rickmansworth Road. You know, we know the issues with York House over the years, and obviously more was invested in other parts of the town. So that's a good thing. So overall, I support this. Yeah, I understand obviously the issues that Councillor Dims has raised, and that's about the general issue about temporary accommodation. As the Mayor says, it's a big issue for most councils, and there's obviously, as you can see in the finance report, the latest, there's still issue with our council with temporary accommodation and the money that we're having to pay for those who've unfortunately, because of the cost of living crisis, lost their way and lost their houses. So overall, I support it, and I'm sure the portfolio holder probably replied to Councillor Dins's questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Nigel. Can I invite Councillor Ian to speak?
Yeah, thanks very much. I mean, I just want to say we brought this and discussed this as a cabinet, and I think this is a very, very good use of this building to expand accommodation. On the topic of the issue of struggling to find properties in Watford to use for temporary accommodation, we really need to understand the scale of the problem. So I'll just give an example. We are competing with inner London councils who are booking our hotels. We're also competing with, as I understand it, the Home Office who are trying to house refugees in hotels. That's happening up and down the country, where local authorities are unable to put their local residents into properties in their provision because of the scale of this challenge. I really don't think we can underestimate just how severe this is up and down the country, and it is on the back of the cost of living crisis. The local housing allowance went up in April. I hope to see it go up again. Tomorrow we have the King's Speech. There's lots of mechanisms by which government can hope to address this. One that we've been pushing for example, is the lift of the cap on child benefits. That's one of the major drivers of poverty and destitution in this country. I've received a Citizens Advice Bureau briefing, as did all the candidates in the general election. So I know Matt, and I'm sure he does care. I know Matt knows that too. So I hope to see some really radical action tomorrow from national government on this issue. But I just really want to stress any provision of additional affordable or social housing should be supported by the council. I really hope you guys support it unanimously. And please, Councillor Dinser, please have a look at the report. So the question you asked about the funding is in there. The property goes to Watford Community Housing, and then they're going to lease it off to New Hope. That's the point in provision. So at least the registered provider has that property to make use of. That's the key point. Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor Ian. Councillor Glenn, would you like to sum up, please?
Yes, when I get the right microphone. I welcome the support for the proposal broadly. I would point out, in terms of the question and concerns that Councillor Dinser raised, obviously we share those concerns around individuals facing homelessness. That's exactly why this proposal is being brought forward. It will save costs on temporary accommodation, prevent people from having to access those services which are less than optimal. And I will, as Ian has said, I'm not going to read out the paragraph 4.3 of the report because I hope he'll read it himself. But it says that the property will remain leased. This is a legal agreement with Watford Community Housing as part of providing this funding, and that will include a clause that the property remains leased to a homelessness organisation for as long as the council considers there to be a need. That's an object lesson in reading the report beforehand, I think. But I commend this to the council. I hope you'll all unanimously vote for it. Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor Glenn. Does the council agree the recommendation as printed as page 24 of the agenda pack? The council provide a capital grant, 160,000 to Watford Community Housing Trust. The grant to be used to secure an alternate property for New Hope to deliver service currently delivered from 64 Whitmanworth Road. The council allocates the remaining capital received from the sale of 64 Whitmanworth Road to secure additional housing unit. The sum allocated to be no greater than the total capital received profit less than 160,000 committed to Watford Community Housing Trust. All in favour? That's been carried. A report of the Housing Enabled Development Manager has been circulated with the agenda, including the minutes from Cabinet, which has been circulated separately. I invite Councillor Glenn to move the recommendation, please.
Thank you again, Chairwoman.
You only have 7 minutes. Let me remind you, please.
Okay. I'll start the clock. So this proposal signals this council and mayor's determination to increase the number of social rented family accommodation in Watford. I know colleagues and officers will agree this is the most urgently needed form of affordable housing that we can provide. So as I've already mentioned, affordable housing, particularly social housing, is in severe crisis. One of the most agonising things we witness as members of this council is families with little children stuck in bed and breakfast or hotel accommodation. Tonight we have the opportunity here to use commuted funds, which are contributions toward affordable housing needs secured from developers during the planning process, to alleviate this situation. This proposal asks council to approve £375,000 of these funds to deliver 5 family properties in Sydney Road at social rent. I'm acutely aware this is a small number when looking at the waiting lists, but the impact it would have on 5 families who face homelessness in future simply cannot be overstated. The proposal also complements the conversion of 52 shared ownership properties, sorry, not 52, 32, I believe, 18 properties in the same development by WCH into affordable rental units, with further benefits for those in need of affordable properties. In the same way as the previous item, the use of funding like this should also alleviate the financial burden of hotel and B&B accommodation on the council's budget. this use of commuted funds provides a model for the future, we're already working to identify further opportunities to use commuted funds in this way with registered housing providers like WCH, and I hope you'll join me in backing it. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Glenn. Can we have a seconder, please? Thank you, Councillor Aga. Would you like to speak?
Chairwoman, I reserve my rights to speak.
Does anyone else would like to speak? Councillor Bell. Anyone else? Councillor Nigel, anyone else? Okay, would you like to speak? Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. And obviously I support this as it indicates I did at Cabinet. Any affordable homes that we have or monies that we've got left over, I think the council should always, as we did in Labour Council times, should always try to make sure we've got social rented units, because that's what we desperately need, as Councillor Sanfrey said. I think obviously it is a bit of a cop-out, the money that planning authorities or the developers can get away with, but we might as well use it when we get the money. And obviously this is only 5 properties, as he says, but at least it's something, and it'll add to ones we've got there. But I hope that there'll be more on the way, and any other chance we've got for these committed sums that we can use for ease the situation in our for our homeless people. Well, people who haven't got properties, then obviously I support. So yeah, I fully support this.
Thank you, Councillor Nigel. Does the council agree with the recommendation on page? Would you like to sum up?
Sorry, I keep pressing my microphone's away. Yes, I would. Thank you. And I appreciate those comments from Nigel and the support for this proposal. I agree in terms of sometimes it can be a perception that a commuted sum is a cop-out from a developer. And I understand that there are planning reforms coming down the track from the incoming government. I hope that our new MP and the government will look at how we deliver more affordable housing. And we as a council, while we receive these commuted sums and we demand the absolute most through the current system that we can, and we'll continue to do so, we will continue to look for opportunities to work jointly with providers and developers to identify opportunities to deliver more social rental and affordable accommodation. But I welcome the support for the proposal, and I thank everyone for backing the item. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor again. Councillor Aga, did you want to say anything, please?
Thank you, Chairwoman. I reserve my right to speak.
Thank you. Does the council agree with the recommendation on page 29 of the pack? The council, as part of the capital program, approves a contribution of 375,000 of the commute sum to secure the delivery of 5 social rented houses on the site known as Land to Rear of 1 to 43 Sydney Road and 7 to 9 Sydney Road, Humphreys. All in favour? That's carried. Finance Monitor Report 2023-2024. A report of the Chief Finance Officer has been circulated with the agenda included the minutes from Finance Scrutiny and Cabinet. I invite Councillor Kennedy to move the recommendation. You have 7 minutes.
Thank you, Chairwoman Dawn. Members, I present to you a summary of the revenue and capital year-end position for the financial year 23-24. The position is subject to external audit and may change. The audit of the accounts is expected to take place during 24-25. During the year, the council has faced significant financial challenges as a result of persistent high inflation, rising interest rates, the impact of the cost of living crisis on residents, which has increased demand for services, and the overall pressure that has come from reduced local government funding. The latest budget agreed by council in January included additional planned use of reserves to fund these pressures on a one-off basis, with the longer term impact addressed through the budget planning process for 24-25 onwards. However, the following mitigation measures were also put in place to bring down spend and to protect the council reserves so that they remain available to manage future financial risks. A recruitment freeze with an exception process in place for critical posts or where recruitment reduces costs of interim staff. Minimising use of agency staff, interim contractors, consultancy and overtime. Any procurement needed to be delivered within existing budgets or make savings on existing budgets. Identifying opportunities to stop or pause activities and initiatives to reduce spend on non-essential matters in the year. The final year-end revenue position is an underspend against the latest budget of £343,000, resulting in the general fund balance remaining at the risk assessed level of £2 million and a balance of £701,000 in the economic impact reserve at the 31st of March 2024. During the year, 24.728 million was invested in capital schemes, including 10.707 million in Aspire at Watford Business Park, regeneration development. In terms of the £343,000 underspend, this came from a number of one-off items, which included additional income from a COVID fund administered by Herts County Council, underspends on some Veolia works, which will be carried out this year, and costs on temporary accommodation coming in lower than anticipated. However, it must be noted that there's been a significant increase in temporary accommodation costs from £158,000 in 22-23 to £1,246,000 in 23-24. Cabinet has reviewed the financial monitoring report and recommends to Council to approve the revised capital investment programme of 42.451 million for 24-25, 10.51 million for 25-26, and 4.258 million for 26-27, including rephasing of 6.76 million capital budgets from 23-24 into 24-25 onwards, as set out in Appendix 4. Major schemes to be rephased into 24-25 are the Town Hall Quarter of 4.26 million and surplus sites of 1 million. The budget agreed for 24-25 included savings of 616,000 to be achieved through service redesign and a further 30k from a review of essential car users allowance. These savings were held corporately within strategic finance, pending agreement of how these savings would be delivered. Of this, 587,000 has been identified, predominantly from voluntary redundancy and deletion of vacant posts. Environment is requested in Appendix 7 to allocate the saving from strategic finance to the relevant service budgets. Finally, I would like to thank all WBC officers for their diligence and significant contributions to the cost management process undertaken during the year. I recommend this report to Council.
Thank you, Councillor Kennedy. Can I have a seconder, please? Thank you, Mayor Peter. Would you like to speak?
I'll reserve my right to speak. Thank you, Chairwoman.
Thank you. Does anyone else want to speak? Councillor Bell. Sorry, can you put your hand up again? I see Councillor Nigel, I saw your hand. Who else? I'll hold it for you next time, Councillor Bell. You don't have to hit the table. Anyone else? Can you go ahead and speak, Councillor Bell?
Yeah, thank you, Councillor Kennedy, for that detailed report, and that was good to hear. Obviously, going back to page 34, obviously you say, obviously we know about the recruitment freeze with an extension process for critical posts, and we've obviously been through all that before Christmas. That's been very difficult for staff, but they've managed it. Minimising use of agency staff, interim contracts. Can you maybe come back on that, or where we are with that, on how many agency staff there are now? and obviously say identifying opportunities to stop or pause activities, initiatives to reduce spend on non-essential matters in the year. I'm sure we'll follow up in the year what they are. And I think it's very interesting. You think of the last item that we had. This actually, does show the issue about the money spent on bed and breakfast and temporary accommodation, that shooting up to 1.246 million in the last financial year. So I suppose that does put in, just show the issue starkly for us here. And again, as you say, there are 190 households in temporary accommodation. Now that was 31st of March 24. I presume that's changed now. You say you're working with registered providers to secure additional temporary accommodation to increase the core portfolio. But obviously, it makes a difference, and I realise it makes it harder when there has been such a rapid rise. So I'm assuming, if you're on top of that now, but I mean, if the figures have changed since March the 31st, can you let us know what the latest figures are? But anyway, thanks for the reporting.
Thank you, Councillor Nigel. Councillor Kennedy, would you like to sum up? Would you like to speak, Mayor Peter?
Thank you very much, Chairwoman. Just to pick up on that final point that Councillor Bell made, I mean, I would say thanks to a lot of hard work by the housing team here, the numbers in temporary accommodation, they rose very rapidly and have increased marginally. So the figure, I believe, is 206. When I first became mayor in 2018, from recollection, I think the number was about 160. We brought that down to below 100 families in temporary accommodation. There's been a big increase. It's now levelling off, but we've got to be honest and say there's a national housing crisis. That if you look at the figures, for some London boroughs, it's thousands of families in temporary accommodation, and many of them are choosing to place them in Hertfordshire. So it's a big challenge, as Councillor Bell said, that we've looked at in our last items this evening. But we're really aware of the scale of the challenge and doing everything we can. What we do need is a national approach to it. We need a government that's prepared to fund a big social house building programme so that people can move out of temporary accommodation into permanent houses, and that's going to cost money. And I hope that the new Labour government will support councils who are willing to invest in that form of housing.
Thank you, Mayor Peter. Councillor Kennedy, would you like to sum up, please?
Thank you, Chairwoman. I don't think I've got much more to say on top of what I've already said. Councillor Bell, in terms of the point you've asked, question you've asked in terms of the reduction in agency staff, I will come back to you on that point. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Kennedy. Does the council agree the recommendation from Cabinet as set out on page 35 of the pack to approve the reverse capital investment program of 42.451 million for 2024-2025, 10.51 million for 2025-2026, and 4.28 million for 2026-2027, included a rephrasing of 6.70 million capital budget from 2023 to 2024 into 2024-2025 onwards, as set out in Appendix 4. To approve the revenue venerement for 2024-2025 as set out in the Appendix 7. All those in favour? That has been carried. Thank you. The motion. Two motions has been received. We will go through them in order of receipt by democratic manager. I would remind all councillors that the mover of the motion have up to 7 minutes with the right to reply of up to 3 minutes. Everyone else speaking have up to 5 minutes. Addressing the funding crisis to local government. The first motion has been proposed by Councillor Kennedy and second by Councillor Mark W. Details are contained in the agenda. I will now invite Councillor Kennedy to move the motion. You have up to 7 minutes.
Thank you, Chairwoman. Members, we bring this motion to Council tonight to seek a means to address the funding crisis in local government financing. The Local Government Association estimates that councils in England face a funding gap of 6.2 billion over the next 2 years. Alarmingly, 1 in 5 English local authorities are at risk of issuing a Section 114 notice this year or next. In Watford, we have seen our unring-fenced grant funding from central government cut by 50% in real terms in the last 10 years, which makes managing local services a difficult ask. The sensible financial decisions Watford Council has made have protected key services for many years. However, continued cuts to our funding and increased demands on our services will result in difficult decisions in the future. Running our public services should not be a game of compromise. Past governments have created a begging bowl culture of local government finance, with councils having to invest significant resources into applying for pots of money. In most cases, a majority of councils then receive little or no funding at all, and the time chasing these grants is wasted. In effect, the government is allowing councils to compete against each other for survival. To put things into perspective, Watford Services grant from government reduced from 110,000 this year to a mere 18,000 for next. This has meant we have had to cut costs where we can and make the most of our income opportunities, including the return on our property investments. Half of English council lack confidence in their ability to fulfil their legal duties next year, and there is wide concern about local authority funding that spans all political parties and divides. Similar financial pressures and concerns are faced by councils in Scotland and Wales, and there is a call for the Scottish and Welsh governments to collaborate with the councils to take action. The National Audit Office estimates that between 2010 and 2011 and 2021 and 2022, the real spending power of English councils decreased by 29%. The 23 autumn spending statement did not address the needs of local authorities or the people they serve. The ageing population is growing faster than the general population, increasing the complexity of care required. The Health Foundation suggests that 14 billion may be needed alone by 2030-31 to fund adult social care alone. The number of looked after children is 80,000 and rising. Many councils in England struggle to meet the demand for SEND support. Councils face difficulties funding the increasing need for homeless placements and supported accommodation. Councils are under increasing cost pressures, particularly to meet inflation and rising staff costs, including the national living wage. Council believes local authorities play a vital role in delivering local services. The current funding arrangements are insufficient to meet the needs of local authorities. The government's approach of encouraging councils to use reserves and capital receipts to subsidise their revenue expenditure is fundamentally wrong and unsustainable. Most councils have exhausted the potential of efficiency savings. Further cuts can only come from the core services highly valued by communities, such as leisure services, swimming pools, libraries, bus routes and the arts. Properly funded local government can play a key role in tackling climate change and protecting our environment. Watford Council has a strong record in community engagement and delivering high quality, value for money, local public services to respond to local needs. Council resolves to write to the newly elected MP for Watford to ask that he stand up for a reform in local government funding to ensure the needs of the residents of Watford are met. Point 2, write to the newly elected MP to demand that he show support in Parliament for the LGA local government white paper, which includes a request for long-term local government funding settlements and suggests several freedoms and flexibilities to improve the financial position of local authorities. 3, that the Mayor writes to the newly appointed Secretary of State for the Department of Levelling Up and Communities, asking if she will prioritise reform of local government funding to support local councils to deliver excellent public services which better support residents in Watford and other local authorities across England. 4, announce support for the LGA's Make It Local campaign, which outlines how local government is key to delivering solutions to the biggest issues facing the public. I recommend this motion to Council.
Thank you, Councillor Kennedy. Councillor Mark, would you like to speak?
Thank you, Chairman. Madam Chairman, I would wait I will hold on my, I can't get the words out, my speech until later in the debate.
Thank you.
Senile dementia.
Does any other member would like to speak? Ian? Nigel? Ian and Councillor Nigel, Councillor Ian. Anyone else? Councillor Karen?
Chair, I'll wait and hear the debate and then decide if I've got time.
Councillor Joktor, we need your name now, or
No, I'm
please.
sorry, you're changing the rules for the first time. It's never happened in that way before. Otherwise, I'll give my name now. You can't just make the rules up on the night. I'm right in listening to the debate and then coming in. Thank you.
Anyone else? Okay, we'll now invite.
You didn't reply to what I said. I'll be able to come back.
I heard your Councillor
Thank you for this.
Joktor. Councillor Ian, would you like to speak?
Yeah, I'll keep my remarks brief because I think Kennedy did a great job introducing it. I just really want to say, think of those services that we deliver locally, but that spending power that isn't now kept up with by government. We're bringing this motion in a timely fashion because, as we've already mentioned, the King's Speech is tomorrow. It's the first opportunity for the new administration to lay out its plans. It's been ignored successively for a very, very long time by government, but local authorities are the tip of the spear for delivering loads and loads of services. Here in Watford, we deliver loads and well beyond our statutory requirement in terms of climate change, biodiversity, the River Colne project, the wetlands projects, etc. And we're trying to do that because it's necessary. If we don't get ourselves out there and implement those sorts of schemes, then it'll only be even harder to tackle things like the climate crisis or the housing crisis if we're not proactive. What we need is government to actually back local authorities so they can get stuff done. I've seen there's a plan to empower metro mayors, etc., but that is giving people more powers but not more funding will only go so far. There needs to be a very serious funding resettlement for local authorities, and that also applies to county council, who administers things like transport, like health, like social care. If we want to get in and tackle those crises that we've been talking about for weeks and weeks and weeks in various election campaigns, there needs to be funding in the pot. So we really have this motion in part to highlight the crucialness of tomorrow's King's Speech and the work for the years to come. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Ian. Councillor Nigel, did you want to do any amendments?
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I just wanted to obviously reply to that, but before then, I wondered if I could get a technical answer from the monitoring officer, because as you know, I know you've been in correspondence, obviously, with the new MP. I mean, obviously, that because of the way the motion's put down, Matt would like to have got here. Obviously, he couldn't be in Parliament till late anyway, but obviously he's not, as you say, he wouldn't have been able to take part because they've asked him to write. He obviously couldn't take part in the meeting. I don't know if you could explain that, Chair, if he's allowed to explain that.
Yeah, no problem. So because the motion specifically requires the MP to write a letter to the MP, that's an interest now for Councillor Tremaine as the Member of Parliament. So he has a direct interest in this particular item. Had he have been here, he would have had to declare that interest and have left the room for the debate and not taken part in the voting in the same way that other members earlier on in the day declared an interest in some of the other motions where they'd been employed in different places.
Thank you, Chair, for that, and thanks for that clarification. So I think I just thought that I'd put that out there, because obviously Matt was then, advised that even if he did get here in time, he might have got here, he wouldn't have been able to take part in these two. So, and that's also something for you to think, if you're going to put down motions in future from the Liberal Democrat route, you know what the situation is on there. But Matt has obviously told me anyway, he has already written to the Secretary of State, Rachel Reeves, Chancellor Rachel Reeves. He's also written to Angela Rayner, and for the next motion, we'll talk about that, but we're speaking. He's written to all of them already. So that shows, as a Labour MP, he acted as soon as he could. The Labour government is onto it already. So I just had to get that across there, obviously, that he's already done what you asked him to do, but he couldn't have commented on tonight anyway. It's an exciting time for us, and it should be for all of us. You need to come together on this because, a new government, a changed government, and, whatever our views. I mean, I put down a motion at County Council today, as Councillor Watford will know, where all of us in the county could try and come together, all the MPs, different political parties, as well as the 10 districts, to try and get the best deal from the new government over a period. Obviously, the budget is not going to be till, I don't know yet, end of September, October, but yeah, there is the King's Speech tomorrow. I haven't got any, I haven't been told what's in it, but I don't know there's anything dramatic in it about local government, but as we all know, to coin a phrase, there isn't a magic money tree. There isn't loads of extra money that's going to be there now. But a lot of the points that you mentioned, we certainly agree with. And I hope that one of the main things that the Chancellor is able to do now is have the new stability, having at least a 2 and hopefully a 3-year spending round. That's one thing we've missed, and one thing that she said she's trying to propose, and what we certainly need, all district councils and county councils need to have that stability, and rather this business stick and plaster 1 year, then another year, that's the last thing we need. Various other things you've mentioned, which I do agree on. I mean, you talk about the LGA saying about the 6.2 billion that we're short of. That's true. I mean, a lot of those things are not that's things for the county, obviously children's services, as Mark and I know about, adult care, all those kind of things, desperate for the extra money. We're going to have to look at that. And again, that's something where I think all councils need to come together on that to get the best. But obviously, from a small district council like Watford, of course, yeah, you're struggling like others, and we need to try and get the best deal out of it. As for the, yes, we are lucky that Sharon Taylor has got that promotion in the new Prime Minister's government, and I've obviously seen the letter that that you've written to her, and you know that she's written back, and she said she'll do her best on that. I mean, she's a long-time leader of Stevenage Council, a lot of changes for the better, and now that she's in the government, she's always going to have, and that's her position, she's always going to have local government, especially Hertfordshire, in her mind. So I'm sure that's something we'll go for. You know, other than that, I've not got no other advanced knowledge of what's coming out tomorrow or also in the budget, but I'm sure it's going to take time. There isn't, as we know, the money's not necessarily all there, but it's going to take time, and I'm sure being innovative, we will get that extra funding eventually, and also getting change in reform is one of the main things we're going to do. So yes, we support these, and as I say, I can what you put down there, got no reason not to. But as I say, the MP Matt Tremaine has already written the letters, and that's the key thing. I'll leave it for there now until the next motion. But thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Nigel. Councillor Curran, would you like to speak?
Thank you, Chairman. Yeah, there was just one particular point I really wanted to pick up in Councillor Rodriguez's speech, which is to do with SEND provision being one of the things that really suffers because of this horrible situation where councils are having to beg for more funding from central government. Every local authority up and down the country is underfunded for SEND resource. Hertfordshire County Council very recently was found by the CQC to be absolutely failing children and young people with special educational needs and disabilities here in Hertfordshire. And I personally have experienced that, trying to obtain an EHCP, an educational health and care plan for my own daughter, where counties simply refused to assess us. We had to go to appeal. And it's the same story that families again and again tell us, is they just say no to everybody, and this is not just Hertfordshire, because it's cheaper to just say no and hope that people don't fight back, because this is how desperate local authorities are to save money. The only people that suffer there are the kids, right? The families that are really affected by it. And what's really unfair is what we've seen as the rise in the right-wing leaning press, referring to parents like me as being entitled, being the cause of people's tax bills going up because we're being demanding on our local authority. We're not being demanding on our local authority. We are just trying to ensure that our children's basic legal rights, which are enshrined in statute, are being met by the local authority. The other thing that I really have to touch on, because it's not been spoken about enough in the last few months in the lead up to the general election, is the safety valve intervention programme. For those of you who don't know, so many local authorities were just strapped for cash to meet their special educational needs provision. So central government, through the Department for Education, basically bailed them out. But in exchange, those local authorities had to enter into agreements called safety valve agreements. What that means is that those local authorities then have to make commitments to reduce their spend on special educational needs. How can you do that when children still need support? What it means is then these local authorities are increasingly denying education and healthcare plans. They're not giving the funding that's needed to schools because they have to meet their commitments to the Department for Education. What I personally will be very closely watching for with this new government is when will they scrap the intervention programme, because families up and down the country are suffering, and please God, Hertfordshire will never enter into one of those arrangements.
Thank you, Councillor Curran. Councillor Japta, you want to speak?
Yeah, I'm coming now after what. Yeah, I think First of all, I'd like to thank Matt Tamain for taking that action already, what the motion is asking him to do. That's really good of him. And also, we got to remember, after 14 years of the previous government, the state they've left the country in, everything underfunded, and there's no money in the pot. So that money has got to be generated from somewhere. So we got to wait and see. I mean, it's a very hard task for the coming Labour government. It's not going to be easy for the coming years. So it's a major task for them. Thank you. I support whatever is in the motion.
Can I just make a point of clarification?
Can I invite the Mayor Peter to speak?
Yes, sorry, it's just to make a point of clarification. Councillor Bell said earlier mentioned the letter that I wrote to Baroness Taylor in relation to the £16 million, the need for Labour to make a decision, hopefully a positive one on that. And he said he'd seen that letter and also seen the Minister's response. I haven't received a response, so I just think it's important that we're clear that we haven't had a reply yet from her. And of course, we would love to have a reply from her as soon as possible.
Thank you. Thank you, Mayor Taylor. Councillor Mark, can I invite you to speak?
Thank you very much, Madam Chairman. I was reflecting at the beginning of this discussion about how, when I first became the portfolio holder for finance for this authority, we basically looked at funding coming from council tax, fees and charges, and a big chunk from government funding. And on supporting that, some property income, which was relevant, but certainly not the biggest area. But because of what's been done to this authority, we found that our government funding has been stripped to the bone, and the figures in the motion actually specify that quite clearly. And indeed, it was through our own innovation and use of our funds to actively develop our property portfolio that we've managed to preserve our ability to be able to fund those resources, those developments that we've seen this council provide over the years. And then what happens? The government suddenly decides that this is unnecessary, this is a risk, and that the only way we can use any of our income from property is back into regeneration inside our authority, which actually was at odds with what we were trying to do, which was to spread the risk across the country. Now, I use that example to illustrate just how, in a way, government has been actually trying to sort of curtail our ability to be able to provide the services that our communities desperately need. We've heard about the temporary accommodation pressure. We've heard movingly from Karen about how SEND funding has been absolutely stripped to the bone. And she's quite right. All authorities in SEND are struggling, and there are some huge costs coming down the road for the authorities to meet their statutory requirements. So basically, what I want to say was that this motion is essential, that the council, that is given to the government to get the message through, that it is vital that if you want local services provided by the local councils, you have to listen to what we're saying. We are on an edge here. We have £14 billion worth of potential risk coming down the stream. This council is just about holding its own. We've had to make some major decisions in terms of reducing our staffing. Fortunately, our frontline services have been protected, but at the rate at which we're going at the moment, unless we get greater support from the council, no one can be sure that that will be the case. I urge everybody to support this motion. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Mark. Councillor Kennedy, you want to sum up?
Thank you, Chairwoman. I think the only thing which I'd like to say is I'd like to thank all members who have spoken this evening, and I appreciate all the comments they've made. In particular, I would like to thank Councillor Clark Taylor for the very, very important points that she's made in regards to SEND, and thank you very much for that.
The full motion is set out in the pack on page 3 to 5, including its request that the council resolve to write to the newly elected MP for Watford to ask him to stand up to reform in local government funding to ensure the need of residents of Watford are met. This is so that we can close the funding gap and continue to maintain and develop the incredible and vital public service we provide for the long term. We also ask them to support policies aimed at building consensus and long-term funding for social care. Write to the newly elected MP to demand that he show support in Parliament for the LGA local government white paper, which include the requests for long-term local government funding settlement and suggests severe freedom and flexibility to improve the financial position of the local authority. The mayor write to the newly appointed Secretary of State to the State for Department of Leveling Up and Communities, asking if she will prioritize reform the local government funding to support local council to deliver excellent service, public service, which better support residents in Watford and other local authorities across England. And also urge for the next government to implement proper long-term funding for local government and, as a matter of urgency, to close the 6.2 billion funding gap. Announce support for the LGA's Mark It Local campaign, which outline how local government is key to delivering solution to the biggest issue facing in the public. All in favor? That's carried. Thank you. Councillor Adler, Councillor Gabriel, sorry, we ask you to leave the room, please. Rebuilding Watford General Hospital to support better maternity care. The second motion has proposed by Councillor Penn. She's unable to attend this evening, so we're going to ask Councillor Jenny to move the motion and Councillor Karen to second. Can I invite you?
Thank you, Chairwoman. I'm going to start with a bit of a personal story as I've got the opportunity. So 29 years ago today, I became mum for the first time in the maternity unit at Watford General Hospital. As fate would have it, 22 years ago today, I was back delivering my second baby in the same building exactly 7 years later. Selfishly, I'm going to take this opportunity to say happy birthday to both of my oldest children, a very public happy birthday, and to thank them both for being as busy as I am, which means I can be here tonight to propose this motion on behalf of Penn. From a very, very distant memory, the care and support given to me all those years ago shaped my journey into parenthood. And me, along with hundreds of thousands of families, have experienced the joy of becoming parents in the maternity unit of this incredible hospital, supported by the wonderful clinical staff teams. As a former CQC inspector who was part of the inspection team at West Herts Hospital Trust on many occasions, each time we inspected, it was clear that the facilities and environment needed to improve to ensure the quality of the environment mirrored the quality of care. We know that the experiences of patients using Watford Hospital has improved greatly since the last CQC report. Just yesterday, the Trust has announced that the A&E department has been ranked as the 7th best performing in the entire country for A&E waiting times, rising over 100 places in the ranking in just 2 years. This is a testimony to the hard work, passion and dedication of the teams working there, and they deserve a better environment to continue to provide compassionate, safe care. From my experience working across the health and social care systems, the importance of truly integrated care, where access to excellent healthcare is available at the heart of communities who need it most, delivers improved outcomes in the quality of life for residents. Whilst there is no doubt that our NHS delivers incredible services at the point of care, and the staff at Watford General are exceptional in their dedication to patients they are able to care for, with a much improved building, they could achieve so much more. Having easy access to high quality healthcare services improves health outcomes for patients. It improves life expectancy within communities. It addresses health inequalities and supports the overall well-being of residents in a local area. Watford Council know this, and that's why we've invested time and resources to ensure that the access to the new hospital was delivered via Thomas Sawyer Way, and that we paved the way for the new multi-storey car park, which has also been delivered. And we delivered the initial planning permission for the hospital, which has been recently granted. But what makes me most proud is the part of the council that is leading the way in fighting for outstanding local healthcare services here, where we need them, and that the team led by Donna know the impact truly embedded integrated care systems can have for the residents of Watford and beyond. We need this new hospital. We need the new government to uphold the promises of the last government and deliver it. It's as simple as that. This motion is important to the improved health and wellbeing outcomes for our residents, and we call upon our newly elected MP to fight for it in Parliament. Finally, I'd like to thank Councillor Penn, who drafted this motion and is unfortunately unwell. I'd like, if I can, to briefly take this opportunity to read this message from Councillor Penn in regards to this motion. These are Penn's words. As many of you know, I had a baby at Watford General Hospital 5 months ago. I cannot fault the care I received from the start of my pregnancy to the birth of my son. Every midwife, nurse, doctor and other member of staff was excellent and incredibly kind and supportive. However, the facilities and building itself require improvement. You can see that from the CQC report. I know many of you here will have had your own experiences with the hospital, having had a commitment from the previous government to rebuild. I hope that Matt, as our new MP, will advocate for our new hospital. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Jenny. Councillor Karen, would you like to speak?
May I? Yeah, I'll second it. May I reserve my right to speak, please, if anyone else wants to go first?
Thank you. Does anyone else would like to speak? Councillor Nigel? Anyone else? Councillor Nigel, please speak.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. And obviously, first of all, say, obviously, as I said before, that Matt has already written to the Secretary of State about this. He's onto it, and as Councillor Hill says in a letter, that he will certainly be advocating that. And it's one of the things that the Labour Party have always fought for, a hospital in Watford going back many years, as you know. And we were there when the NHS was born under a Labour government, 1948, it was one of our great achievements. And many campaigns over the years going back to, there's Norman and Mavis there, remembering Claire Ward, which is the MP, and the Save Our Hospital campaign, 1998, when everyone put things in their window, put the labels out, lots of things. And so we're pleased now, and actually going back to 2008-9, when Andy Burnham came here as the Secretary of State with the plans there for the hospital. And we know what happened when the coalition got in, and sadly that was gone. But yes, as I say, West Street in, it's an exciting time. He's given a commitment already to the funding for Watford Hospital to try and find it, so it's there. And that's what we, obviously, I'm sure you'll hold that into account quite rightly, but that's something that the Labour government always, tries to end up putting more money into the NHS and into hospitals. And that's what we're hoping again after we get over the initial issues of the economy generally. But Councillor Padson's quite right to talk about the CQC report. I'm on at the County Council, I'm on the health scrutiny with Councillor Chris White and Dee Hart. That came up when the CQC report first came out. The thing that just stood out straight away was not the care, but it was the issue about the buildings and the maternity, and that's clearly everyone can see. The same as Princess Alice, obviously in Harlow, but the issue with Watford was that, and I know we're not standing here to do all our lists of when our families were born there, but obviously my eldest daughter was born there in 88 and my youngest daughter was born in 93. So I'm sure all of us who've lived here for years have got that that link to the hospital. But make no mistake, the Labour Party has always stood up for the NHS, and this is a big issue for us in Watford, and it is for us here. And it was pointed out again at the County Council today, as Councillor Walker will say, when there was some Conservative members, especially in Dacorum, in Hemel, obviously raising the issue of having a new hospital at another site, even though that argument should have been won. To be fair to him, Councillor White stood up before I did and did say, look, that argument's been won and we're pushing now for the proper action emergency new hospital at Watford. There'll be funding at St Albans, there'll be funding at Hemel, that's fine, but the accident emergency, that argument should be over now, so it needs, hopefully, people to accept that and to have forward. But there's no question we fully support this. The Labour government will be pushing for more money for the NHS and clearly a proper, fully funded hospital in our town. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Nigel. Do any members wish to move any amendment?
I want to speak.
Go ahead, Councillor Jokta.
I don't know why you're looking so surprised. I have a right to speak.
So, Doctor, go ahead, please, and speak.
I just wanted to add, Nigel has touched on a lot of the things that people need to remember. It was Claire Ward and the Labour government that approved the funding for the Watford Hospital, and then the coalition took place between the Lib Dems and the Conservatives, which had never moved any further. And my residents in Vicarage Ward also lost their allotments, which the land was going to be used for the hospital, and not a single brick has been laid to date. And I'm sure that the commitment that Matt has already written, and we will be pushing as Labour councillors for Labour government to develop this hospital, well-deserved hospital that needed doing. So I know you keep reminding us when we were in control in Watford Council. Now I want to remind you when you was in coalition and took the allotment land away and not a single brick's been laid. Thank you.
Mayor Peter Taylor, go ahead.
Sorry, thank you, Don. I'm just had to respond to some of the comments that have just been made because they're just not accurate. So if we go back to the last Labour government, there was no planning permission, there was no plans. So we keep hearing that if there was this, there's this hospital fully funded, all planned. Really easy way to prove it: bring forward the planning permission, show me the planning permission that was granted, show me the designs that they don't exist. So you can try to rewrite history. I don't think it helps anybody actually moving forward.
Didn't say
the second thing to say is,
funding.
please don't interrupt when I'm speaking. The second thing to say is they did have 13 years last time to deliver it, and they didn't deliver it. When it comes to Farm Terrace, I'm amazed that he raises that. He says not a single brick's been laid. Bricks have been laid. We've got a multi-storey car park there. The multi-storey car park is essential for the new hospital. Where's the new hospital going to go? Where the old car park is. If you don't have a multi-storey car park, you can't have the new hospital. It's absolutely vital, and it's been supported by the West Herts Hospital Trust. They're 100% behind what we're doing. And for a Labour councillor who opposed that car park being built, which would prevent the new hospital, to still stand up here and say not a single brick's been laid, it's inaccurate. And actually, I thought by now Labour might realise the error of their ways. That actually, if they'd got their way, we hadn't built that multi-storey car park, we wouldn't be getting a new hospital in Watford. It's as simple as that. So I'm proud of the record the Liberal Democrat previous mayors and councillors played in securing that multi-storey car park, which means we can have a new hospital in Watford. And rather than rewriting history, I think they should kind of be apologising for opposing those key decisions that were made. Now it's vital that we actually get on and build the new hospital. We've waited many, many years. I've been in endless meetings, endless discussions. All of us, not just in Watford, but the surrounding region, need those new facilities for patients, for staff, for everybody. And rather than endlessly trying to rewrite history, as Jagtar's just done, what we should be focusing on now is, thank God we've got the new multi-storey car park. Yeah. That now provides us with the space for the new hospital. The council's done everything we can. We've improved access. We've provided the space. We've provided outline planning permission. Now it's the job of a Labour government to provide the funding so we can finally get that new hospital.
I was clear in my wording. I was clear in my wording, not a single brick for the hospital.
Taylor.
Car parks for the
Councillor
hospital.
Karen, would you like to speak, please?
Thank you, Chairwoman. Yeah, I will just finish by seconding the motion. As Councillor Bell said, we're not all here to list our experiences of Watford General Maternity. The reason that Penn and I were the people who brought this motion forward is quite simply that we are the councillors who are the two most recent people to give birth there out of the members in our group. I previously, when we've discussed the need for a new hospital in Watford, I previously cited the CQC report. It's been cited actually in the motion and by others here tonight, so I won't go into it again. And I've also previously written quite an emotive letter to the Watford Observer about my experience of my birth, the birth of my son, which I'm sure you can all find online if you're particularly interested. But for me, the need for the new maternity services at Watford really became acutely aware to me when I had my second son. My first daughter was born at home very, very quickly, all very wonderful and actually simple and easy. My second son was a planned home birth. Following the quick birth of my daughter, we called the maternity service and they had to say, really sorry, we don't actually have enough midwives. You're going to have to come to hospital. Let's hope you don't give birth on the way. Fun times. There was no parking next to the maternity building, so unfortunately we had to park right down the bottom of the hill, and I was having back-to-back contractions as I walked all the way up the hill to the maternity building because there was no parking available next to the building, which was quite an effort, I have to say, but just the first part of a very, very difficult experience at the hospital. Then when we got in, I was told, we know you want a water birth. Unfortunately, one of the birth pools is broken, the other one is in use. The only place we can accommodate you is the delivery suite. As somebody who was not a high-risk patient, I didn't need to be in the delivery suite, but unfortunately that then cut off my options for analgesia. Having previously had an unmedicated birth, I couldn't have a water birth this time around, and because of various issues with gas and air and things like that, I had to have a choice between an epidural or no pain relief whatsoever, which was quite traumatic and something of a shock. That was not the fault of the midwives. That was quite simply because Watford does not have enough birth pools. It doesn't have enough facilities. I wasn't even able to have a birth ball in my room on the delivery suite, which is just such basic care for comfort and movement in labour, which is really, really important. And the reason I pause on birth pools is that actually, if you look up the road at Luton, they have birth pools in both their midwife-led birthing centre and in their doctor-led delivery suite. It's the same for Barnet, both of them advertise on their websites. Watford quite simply doesn't have that. We know that facilities like this are really, really important to offer unmedicated analgesia, and we know that the settings in which people give birth have a very, very significant impact on the obstetric outcomes and postpartum outcomes for both mother and baby. There's been study after study that shows this, and that also can have a long-term impact on maternal mental health as well, and a difficult birth experience can be very strongly linked to postnatal depression. So for people like me who wound up having very difficult births, quite simply because the building couldn't cater to our needs, it's a really bitter pill to swallow when you just see this being kicked around as a political football again and again and again, primarily by male politicians over the years who are never going to have to actually go and give birth there themselves, let's be honest. And in my letter to the Watford Observer, I did invite the Johnsons to come and have their baby at Watford General. They never replied, just so Boris could see for himself quite how difficult it was. But I think that just really sums up why it is that we need this investment. It's not fair that it's a postcode lottery, that women in Luton and women in Barnet get these facilities and the women in Watford don't. It's not good enough and it's not fair. And quite simply, to finish with a birth reference, if a woman were as far overdue as this Watford General Hospital project is, there'd be an emergency induction going on. So can we have that now, please?
Thank you, Councillor Karen. Councillor Jenny, would you like to sum up?
I haven't really got too much more to say other than to thank the speakers, and thank you, Karen, and thank you, Mayor Taylor. And we will hold the Labour government to account to deliver this new hospital. Thank you.
The full council motion is set out in the pack on page 5 to 7, inclusive. It requests that Councillor call for Mayor Peter Taylor to write to the newly appointed Secretary of State of Health and Social Care to confirm whether the new hospital program is continued or whether Watford General Hospital will still be included in their program. Mayor Peter Taylor to write to Watford MP to ask for his support in ensuring Watford General is prioritized for refurbishment under the new government, and to what is their plan to make sure it gets built. All in favor? That's carried. Thank you. Thank you. That includes the meeting. If it's getting late,
be upstanding for the chairwoman.
Yes,